We're live.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the August meeting of the Philadelphia Land Bank Board. We are going to start with a statement read by our attorney about holding virtual meetings.
Good morning, everyone. Today's board meeting is being held by an authorized communication device because of the continued closure of land bank offices to the public. This meeting is being recorded. Questions and comments may be made using the Q&A function or the raised hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you are calling in and not using the Zoom webinar link, you may ask questions or make comments by pressing *9 on your phone, and you will be recognized. Sorry. You can also use the raise hand function at the bottom of the screen. Please do not use the chat function. If any member of the public has any issues submitting questions or comments, please send an email to andrea.sa@phdc.phila.gov, and that will be placed in the chat. Please note all questions and comments received by email or through the Q&A section will be included in the minutes. Also, prior to today's public session, the board held an executive session at which the agenda was reviewed, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, and now roll call, please.
Yes. Alexander Balloon,
Here.
Maria Gonzalez,
Here.
Joshu Harris,
Here.
Michael Johns, Michael Koontz,
Here.
Rebecca Lopez Chris,
I can see her.
I can see her.
I'm here.
There she
I'm
is.
here, and I'm setting up, getting my camera together.
Okay, great, thank you. Majida Rashid, Rick Sauer, Ann Fadulin,
Here.
Rich DeMarco, Andrew Goodman. All right, we have 6 and therefore a quorum.
Great. All right, thank you. We can proceed. We will go to approval of the minutes from the July Land Bank Board meeting. Hopefully the board members have had a chance to review those minutes. If there are no comments or edits, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to approve the minutes of the July Land Bank Board meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, minutes carry, and we're on to the executive director's report.
Morning, board members and public. Due to the length of the agenda items, I don't have any report for this month.
Okay, well, that brings us to the action items on the agenda, and I want to make an announcement before we get started that item 5.6 under, well, item 6, I'm going to say under property dispositions, the Myrtlewood project is being tabled. We will not hear that on this agenda, and therefore we will not have comments on that item. It will come back at a future agenda, so please stay tuned for that item. And with that, we're going to proceed with the rest of the agenda, which takes us to item 4A, which is an amendment to an already approved disposition. And I'll turn that over to staff.
Thank you, Ann. Item 4A is regarding an amendment to resolution number 2021-54, which was approved by the Land Banks Board back in November 2021. That particular resolution approved Paseo de Jardines LLC as the developer of an 102 mixed income homeownership project in North Philadelphia. The project was approved in conjunction with properties that were owned and to be conveyed by PHA to the developer. In that approval, 52 affordable duplex units were approved for sale to households at or below 80% of AMI. The remaining units would have been sold for market rate as single family units. The affordable duplexes in that particular project were equally split between 3-bedroom, 2 baths and 1-bedroom, 1-bath units, and all market rate units were 3-bedroom and 2.5 bathroom units. Because of the removal of properties from PHA, well, properties to be conveyed or to have been conveyed from PHA, the amendment is being presented today and is seeking approval of a revised project as follows. Today's approval seeks to approve the revision of overall unit count from 102 units to 57 units. The reduction of affordable units from 52 units to 29 units, which will now include one three-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom unit, and a 28 duplex units that are now equally split again between 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom units and lower level 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom units. There'll be a reduction in market rates from 50 units to 28 units. All of those will be 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom units. Overall, there'll be a removal of 30 PHA properties on the list that were originally included. And the approval of a confirmed property list is now as follows: 1942, 1944, 1946, 1950, 1952, 1954, and 1956 North 3rd Street, 1923, 1927, 1934, and 1935 North 4th Street, 1925 North 5th Street, 301, 303, 305, 307, 309, 433, 437, and 537 West Berks Street, 2004 North Bodine Street, 401, 405, and 407 Houston Street, 1916, 1922, and 1940 Lithgow Street, 313 and 421 West Norris, 1910, 1923, 1926, 1927, 1930, 1931, 1936, 1951, 1952, 1954, and 1958 North Oriana Street. And it's also looking, this approved amendment is also looking to approve the purchase of the properties at $41. With this approval, a declaration of restrictive covenants will still be placed on the affordable units to ensure that they remain affordable for 10 years at minimum. And the purchasers of those units will be income certified. The 15 affordable units, the 15 affordable 3-bedroom, 2-bath will be sold at a maximum of $250,000, targeting those at 80% of AMI. And the 14 affordable 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom units will be targeting those at 80% AMI with a maximum sales price of $150,000. With this revised project, evidence of project financing has been provided. We've then again run the project for compliance and confirmed that it's still in good standing with the city of Philadelphia. This project will still be subject to an economic opportunity plan and also subject to an irrevocable power of attorney and right of reentry reverter as well. Thank you.
Jesse, any members of the board have any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, are there, do we receive any comments on this item, Andrea, prior to the board meeting?
No comments received for this item.
All right, do we have any members of the public that are currently on the line that have any comments on this item?
There are no raised hands.
I'll give it a couple seconds. All right, seeing none, can I get a motion from the board?
I
Oh,
move.
I'm sorry, we just have one hand go up.
Okay.
Alex Gustafson.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, you're unmuted.
Great. So, is this the right time to speak about a couple of the lots that are up for the development and what their current use is?
Which, are there particular lots that you have a question about?
Yeah, 1304 and 1332 on North 29th Street.
Okay, that I believe is a different item.
It is.
Okay.
Okay, so when we get to that item, which is item, I'm trying to see, there's so many properties listed here. Does anybody know from the board quickly what agenda item that is?
And that's item number 6, which we tabled.
Oh, which we
So Marty
tabled.
will- yeah, so
So we've tabled that item, so it won't be heard at this board meeting. It will be heard at a future board meeting. All right, with that, we have a hand up by Patrick Hurst.
I was also curious about units, lots on North Dover Street.
Okay, that is coming up at a future item as well. So just to clarify, what we are looking at right now is a project that the board had approved prior, but has kind of been reconfigured due to the inability to transfer some lots that were supposed to come over from the Public Housing Authority. So we are on a project that has to do with properties on the 1900 block of 3rd Street, North 3rd Street, the 1900 block of North 4th Street, the 1900 block of North 5th Street, the 400 block of West Burke Street, 2000 block of North Bodine, 400 block of West Houston, 1900 block of North Lithgow, 300 and 400 blocks of West North Street, and the 1900 block of North Oriana Street. If your questions are about other lots than those, this is not the agenda item to bring those up. So, okay. Are we good? All right, I'm going to entertain a motion on the current item.
I make a motion to approve the revised proposal for the Jardines project.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to approve the amended disposition of several properties in the North Philadelphia area. I'm not characterize this, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. And that
You're muted.
I
And
accidentally touched my mute button. So that motion carries, and that brings us to section 5 of the agenda, which is new property dispositions, not amended ones. All right, and we are going to start with item 5A, which are developments that have to do, I'm sorry, item 5A1 and items 1 through 5 all have to do with dispositions that resulted from requests for proposals that were issued. Jesse?
Thank you, Ann. So the first item is a response to the East Kensington, East Orleans RFP. Today, we're asking the board to authorize the disposition of properties in the city's East Kensington neighborhood to New Kensington Community Development Corporation, NKCDC. We're looking to get an authorization for the development of an affordable homeownership project in the first district. The proposal includes 17 single-family affordable homeownership units, all of which will be 2 bedrooms and 1.5 bathroom units that will be sold to households with incomes at or below 80% of AMI. Maximum sales price for these will be $230,000. The applications were solicited again by a request for proposals process for the properties, and the applicant was the sole qualified bidder in response. The properties again are located in the First Council District and include the following addresses: 2863 and 2868 Amber Street, 2044 and 2077 East Birch Street, 2118 and 2138 and 2142 and 2150 Belmore Street, 2115 and 2140 East Monmouth Street, 2100, 2108 and 2117, and also 2120 and 2138 East Orleans Street, and finally 2106 and 2150 East Stella Street. The developer is purchasing these properties at a nominal bid. Evidence of the project financing has been provided. We've verified that the applicant is compliant and in good standing with the city of Philadelphia. The project will be subject to an economic opportunity plan. And the project also will be subject to an irrevocable power of attorney and right of reverter reentry. Sale of all units will include a declaration of restrictive covenants, and they will be subject to a use restriction and income verification process to make sure that the properties remain affordable for at least 15 years.
You, any, excuse me, any questions from the board on this item? Seeing none, do we have any members of the public?
have one
who wish to
question.
speak to this? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think
didn't
it
see
might
that.
be beneficial. It might be beneficial to the public if maybe Angel, you can explain, when does a project have a 10-year requirement for affordable housing and a 15-year requirement for affordable housing? Like what, because that seems to be a question in the chat, like how do we ensure that it's affordable, yada, yada, but just.
yeah, so when we had developed these RFPs, and it's a timing issue as to when the board, when the policy committee met, and we talked about increasing the length of time from 10 to 15. So there was one is just an operational timing issue. And just so the public is aware, when we dispose of properties, there is a declaration of restrictive covenants that is filed when we transfer property. that is on the deed, and it follows the land, and it prescribes what can be done on a resale. So, and also first-time home buyers, when they go to apply to buy the house, they have to be income certified by our office. So we verify that everybody's meeting the income guidelines and that they're aware, and they have to sign an affidavit stating that they're aware that there are resale restrictions and that they would have to work with our office to identify what that resale price would be to maintain the affordability moving forward.
All right,
Madam-
great.
Madam Chair, there was one emailed comment for
Okay.
a property in this project, which was 2150 East Stella Street. Ms. Juanita Perez sent an email saying that her mother received entry authorization from the Department of Public Property in 1993 and had been trying to acquire this property in 2017, but the Department of Public Property never conveyed. She would like it for parking because parking on the street is scarce and will get worse with new construction. And so she asked that she be permitted, her mother be permitted to acquire this property.
So just for the board's edification and the public's edification, we do not dispose of residentially zoned properties for parking. That's not an allowable use. So if this person were to apply as a side yard, say it was available for side yards, we would not permit parking as a viable use. We only do side yards as gardening and passive space for use, not for parking.
Thank you. All right, and if there's no other questions from the board, do we have any members present from the public who wish to comment on this item?
There are no raised hands.
All right, given that there's still no raised hands, can I get a motion from the board on this item?
I move that we approve the disposition.
I second.
All right, motion has been made and properly seconded to, excuse me, approve the disposition to New Kensington Community Development Corporation of properties that will result in the development of 17 single-family affordable home ownership units. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. That brings us to item 5A2, which is disposition of properties to the Affordable Alliance Company, which is a joint venture between BMK Properties and Fine Print Construction to develop, again, affordable home ownership unit.
Thank you. And so item 5A2 is an RFP response to the Grace Ferry South Dover Wharton RFP. Today, we're asking the board to authorize the disposition of properties in South Philadelphia's Grace Ferry neighborhood to Affordable Alliance Company LLC. LLC is a joint venture between BMK Properties LLC and Fine Print Construction LLC, which is a certified MBE and also a participant of PHDC's Minority Development Program. They're joining together to develop an affordable homeownership project in the second district. That proposal includes 22 single-family affordable homeownership units that will be sold to households with incomes at or below 80% of AMI. The maximum sales prices on these 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom units will be $250,000. Applications were solicited again by a request for proposals process, and that of which the applicant was the most qualified bidder in response to those submissions. The properties included again in the second district are 2809, 2822, 2824, 2825, 2826, 2827, and 2828 Wharton Street. 1306 to 1308 to 26, 1323, 1327, and 1355 South Dover Street. And finally, 1351 South 29th Street, which includes 1354 South Dover. The developer will purchase this property at its bid price of $44,000. Evidence of project financing has been provided. The applicant has been verified to be in good standing with the city of Philadelphia and compliant. Will be subject to an economic opportunity plan and subject to also to irrevocable power of attorney and right of reentry reverter. And the sale of all units will include that declaration of restrictive covenants, which will enforce the ability to make sure that the properties remain affordable at the rate specified for the next 10 years at least, excuse me, 15 years. And they're also subject to income verification processes as well.
Jesse, any questions or comments from the board on this item? Seeing none, Andrea, did we receive any comments prior to the board meeting?
Yes, excuse me, we received an email from Tiffany Sun requesting that the lots 1308 through 1326 South Dover Street be left out of the project because they serve as a parking lot for residents and construction vehicles that would otherwise block the street currently. That is without the land bank's permission or the city's. Developers and contractors, she says, are blocking access to the street and leave a lot of damage and trash behind. And she stated that the lots also provide a place for neighbors to build community.
Thank you. And it does look like we have some members of the public that wish to comment on this item. I'm going to take them in order that I see them on my screen. So the first is Pauline Everett.
Good morning, everyone. I as well, whatever Tiffany requested, I agree with her 100%. I'm a longtime resident of that block. I've lived there 44 years. Right now is maybe 7 people from the previous ownership. Everyone else is new. Everyone comes with 2 or more cars. And as a senior citizen, it'll be, do you guys have any idea of the logistics on how these units are going to be built? They're at the front of the block, the back of the block. And I'm trying to figure out just how it's going to impact my quality of life.
So, Ms. Everett, in our board package, I don't know if you've had a chance to review it. There is a site plan as to where the houses will be placed on the parcels in this area. I don't know the particular page on that. Jesse, do you happen to know the page number?
It is page 8 of the second part of the posted agenda.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. And the next hand up I have is George Leesersohn. I'm sorry if I did not pronounce that correctly.
Oh, it's all right. It's a tough one. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
I suppose I'm looking to be the third to chime in about the lot, as well as some other issues with the properties in question. The woman that spoke before me, to address her point, there are already people who are parking illegally and struggling to find parking in this area. I guess my biggest question is why the city, and I'm sure this is not an issue that you would be handling, but why the city is not repairing that lot. Currently, there's 12-foot tall weed trees growing out of every corner of that lot. It makes it already very difficult for the people that need it to use it. I'd say that there's probably half as many vehicles as could be in that lot currently in there because of the lack of maintenance. But also, I am aware that there are developments in process farther down Wharton Street, which are also going to make it difficult for people to find parking and are going to add cars to the neighborhood. I'm concerned that this is going to become a big problem. And as the woman before me mentioned, this is a quality of life issue for the people that live on the block and for the people that are potentially moving onto the block. In addition to the parking, this is a more personal issue for me. The properties that are at the corners, all 4 corners of Dover and Wharton, are actually have been and are being maintained by residents of the neighborhood. The city does pay contractors to come and clip the grass, but they're not removing the trash. They're not trimming the trees. We have to call them when we need certain things removed from the lot. All of that is to say that there are individuals, and I think the neighborhood as a whole appreciates the greenery and has a respect for how special these lots are and what they add visually to the neighborhood and the feeling of the neighborhood. And it really, I think that the word shame is the best fit for it. I think it is just a shame that all of that would be removed and that nobody would get to enjoy that anymore. Also, I know that the northeast corner of that same intersection, the address is 25, I believe, Wharton Street. I could be wrong, but I happen to know that my neighbor has been taking care of that lot. I don't know if he's on this call, but I happen to know that he's been taking care of that lot for over 15 years and that he did have some discussion with the city at that point that he would make use of it. 2827, I have been in this home for 4 years at 2829, and I've tried multiple times to contact the city about saving that lot in any way that I can from this exact type of thing. I've asked about side lots. I've asked about public spaces, and frankly, I've had very little help. I understand that there's half a dozen or more different agencies or numbers that I could have been calling, but the fact remains, I've had no good guidance or anybody that felt like they wanted to help in that situation. So you may be able to tell, but I think that all of this development around Wharton and Dover is a bad idea for a number of reasons.
Thank you, Mr. Lieserson. Next, we have Spencer Luboff.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question if someone from the board or maybe the public could answer. So I'm trying to follow all the different questions being asked. Are we advocating for keeping some of these lots open instead of having new housing starts? I don't
I would just say
particularly.
my understanding of the comments so far is that there are existing residents that would like to see some of these lots remain either as parking or as open space, but for individuals, it sounds like. That's my interpretation so far.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, coming from my perspective and my wife's perspective, we've been in the neighborhood for about 5 years, and new neighbors and new houses do a whole lot more for the community than easy parking. You live in a city for a pretty good reason. It just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to keep these lots there forever. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luba. And next we have Jonathan Mabane.
Yeah. I live at 1273 South Dover Street. George just mentioned, I'm calling about the property, the lot right there at 2825 Wharton. I've been maintaining that lot for over 20 years. I've stayed at 1273 since 2000. I own the lot at 2823. So 2825 is between both of my properties. I don't understand why we weren't approached to purchase that property. I don't understand it. I've had an entry authorization and a garden agreement for years. And I just don't understand how come we weren't approached about it. And if anyone should buy it, I think it should be me. And I'm ready to buy it.
Thank you, Mr. Mabane. Do we have any information about whether there was an existing garden agreement on that property?
If there was what kind of agreement?
It sounds like he had a garden agreement.
He had an entry authorization issued by the city. The property was then transferred to the land bank. We don't, the priority was identified in this area for affordable housing development. I also think the board needs to recognize that these properties are all zoned for residential housing. So I don't know when it got paved, but these aren't formal parking lots and zoned for parking. And these are big issues in terms of liability for the agencies. because of, you have private property parking on that. So it is a big concern for the agency to do that. This is not managed by, and we don't have a license agreement with the parking authority to manage these. So I just wanted to put that out there for the record.
And Alex, go ahead.
So someone paved the lot, but we don't know who paved the lot. Is that what you said?
Yeah, there are quite a few where, it could be anything. I mean, there are a lot of places where people take it upon themselves without permits and without license agreements to enter into, public property. It may have been done so, and then we acquired it. So if you look at the provenance of the history of a lot of lots throughout Philadelphia, they've changed hands. And, we can't speak to what the previous, how that a particular area got paved. So.
I just want to note for the record that Board Member Michael Johns has now joined the meeting. And I don't see any more hands up for public comment. If there's no other questions from the board, I will entertain a motion on this item. Oh, folks who've already spoken, we understand your comments. You get sort of a chance to speak, and then we hear your comments and we take it to a vote. So with that, I'm gonna call the question and ask for a motion on this item.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Excuse me, sorry about that. Motion has been made and properly second to approve these properties for disposition for the development of affordable housing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I abstain.
Motion carries.
I
Yeah,
abstain because I didn't
Yeah.
hear them.
because you came on late. Yeah, so just note that Board Member Johns abstains from that item because he joined pretty well after the discussion had occurred. All right, we're going to move to item 5A3, which is disposition of properties to FE West Popular for 54 single-family affordable home ownership units.
Morning again.
Excuse me, Councilwoman, Madam Chair, I'm going to recuse myself.
All right, please note for the record that Board Member Kuntz has recused himself from this item. Go ahead, Jesse.
Sure. Item 5A3 is an RFP response to the West Poplar RFP. Today, we're asking the board to authorize the disposition of properties in West Poplar to FE West Poplar LLC for the development of an affordable homeownership project in the 5th district. The proposal includes 54 single-family affordable homeownership units that will be sold to households with incomes at or below 100% of AMI. Maximum sales price is to be capped at $250,000 for these 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom units. Applications were solicited via a request for proposals process for the properties, and the applicant was the most qualified bidder for the properties. The properties include 1,000 and 1026 to 36 Fairmount Avenue, 1,005, 1,007, and 1013 Mellon Street, 1019 and 1021 Wallace Street, 662 to 68, 647 to 67, and 670 to 72 North 10th Street. And finally, 667 and 677 North 11th Street, all in the 5th Council District. The developer will be purchasing these properties at nominal. Evidence of project financing has been provided. The applicant has been verified to be in good standing and compliant with the City of Philadelphia. It will be subject to an economic opportunity plan and irrevocable power of attorney and right of reentry reverter as well. And sale of all units will be subject to a declaration of restrictive covenants, and units will be subject to use restrictions and income verification as well.
Jesse, any members of the board have any question about this item?
I do. So in the description, we get that the properties are going to be at 100% AMI. How is that affordable? Typically, affordability is up to 80% of AMI. Can you help clarify that?
So based under the new NPI funding and bond issuance, the it sets a cap of using subsidies. So we're putting it out at 100% AMI with the idea that we would be providing a buy down after the properties are developed down to 80. So that's why it was issued at 100% AMI.
Is
And then
that
it
for
will
all
be
the
the-
properties?
For all the properties. This is
Yeah.
100% affordable and they all, so,
But I think we should clarify that it's not an automatic,
correct.
right? That these units would qualify under the Turn the Key program, but the home buyer has to apply individually. So
Correct.
there is the opportunity for the home buyer to get to access those dollars, but it's not that the subsidy is automatically tied to every single home in this included in the RFP, right? So there could be some that end up selling at a higher price because for whatever reason the buyer didn't qualify or they didn't apply or whatever reason.
Right.
And I should just further clarify, I'm sorry, that under the disposition policies that were legislated by city council, they define affordability as up to 120% of median.
So my next question is there a commitment from the developer to have certain percentage of the properties designated that will be used turn the key resources to make those units affordable, further affordable?
I think to Ann's point, the whole project is deemed affordable and therefore the home buyer is able to apply for the subsidy in the Turn the Key program. It really depends on the home buyer, but all the properties are eligible for that subsidy. So the commitment in terms of affordability, that's done through our declaration of restrictive covenant. And when we settle with the developer, that follows the land. So the affordability issue is follows the land when we settle. And then the home buyer then accepts that declaration. And this really comes in at the resale. So should the first home buyer want to sell the property because of life issues, they're moving jobs or whatever, they would have to come back. They're obligated to come back and we would have to income certify the new home buyer. And they would have to accept the declaration of restrictive covenant.
No, I understand that, but is there a commitment to have a set aside for deeper affordability?
No, there
No.
is none. We don't put that into our RFPs.
I'll just say, since
Let
we're
me
on
just
this
say, we
topic,
did not put that into this RFP.
Correct.
There
Right.
are times when that is put into RFP.
Right.
I'll just say for the purpose of the discussion, the ordinance sets a floor in terms of affordability. This board could, in exercising its discretion, decide that we should raise that floor in terms of affordability. And I think that's a completely fair thing for us to discuss, because based upon low and middle income ranges within Philadelphia, 120% of AMI is not something that most Philadelphians can afford. But I agree with the executive director that the availability of NPI funds, which can significantly defray the cost of purchase of a home, means that we might look at some of these proposals through a different lens, because even if the developer is receiving a price point that's at 100% of AMI, the buyer themselves quite likely could purchase at 80% of AMI or even at 60% of AMI potentially, which is affordable for many more Philadelphians.
Yeah, I think most people on this board would agree to you that 120% is pretty generous. And I'm being nice. Alex had his hand up and then we'll go to Mike Johns.
Thank you. I had a question. If a home buyer gets a Turn the Key grant and purchases one of these homes, and then 3 years later needs to sell the home, is the grant recaptured from the home buyer, or would they be selling it from the deed restriction 100% AMI?
If they need to sell the home within the way the legislation is written, is that there is a time period you have to occupy the home. And it's if it's within that time period, there is I guess, an apportionment that would have to be recaptured on the resale. So in essence, we have a note on the property based on that second mortgage. They would have to pay us out of the sales proceeds.
Thank you.
Okay, and Mike Johns.
Yeah, I think that's the 10 years. Is it a full 10 years?
Yeah, it follows the workforce housing piece where it resets so that the second home buyer would have a full 10 years.
Right.
If the first home buyer has to move within that period, say it's 3 years, they would then have to talk to us. We would set the resale value. They would have to, then the new home buyer would have to be income certified, agree to the declaration of restrictive covenants, and that 10 years extends. So really what we're looking at is this could go for 30 years.
Right.
It's a reset on all of these.
So each consecutive owner then has a 10-year requirement.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, unless the
My
initial
question- my
owner
que-
stays in for 10
Right.
years. If the initial owner stays in for 10 years.
Then they can
it's
sell.
done.
Right.
Right, but
If
if
you've set
before,
some-
then yes, it keeps resetting.
Right. So my question is there a requirement or an incentive or something that the developer that sort of mandates the developer to at least advertise that these units are available and the buyer potentially has access to these to those additional dollars?
So as part of the Turn the Key program, we are doing a marketing plan. So there are certain priorities that have been identified. Obviously, city employees is one. Family size is a big issue, income levels, those areas. So before Turn the Key and NPI funding, the developer was responsible for marketing, and then we would have to approve that marketing plan and then verify how they were, each home buyer would have to be vetted by us. Now with Turn the Key, we will be in the forefront recruiting, home buyers, and then the developer will have to sell to these home buyers that have been approved.
Okay.
So we'll have much more of a hand in terms of marketing, qualifying, and making sure that the benefit of this development goes to the intended population.
Okay. I probably have more questions about that, but how that process works, but
Any other questions on this item from the board? Okay, Andrea, did we receive any comments from the public prior to the meeting?
Not on this item.
Okay, and it does appear that we have a couple of hands up from our attendees. So let's start with Sharon Park.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking my question. So on the income certification, following on the heels of Angel's comments, who is certifying income of the buyer?
Our offices.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we have Jacques Singer.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Just a quick question here. Is there a site that I can look for what these AMIs are? Like, what are the levels? Does it vary by neighborhood, or is it Philadelphia wide?
So the levels are done, posted every year by HUD. They look at the Philadelphia MSA area and the Metropolitan Statistical Area. It's kind of a technical term, but that is where we receive that. I think we can put the website in the chat function for everybody, or the Q&A.
And just a side note, it can be really confusing if you're trying to look it up on the HUD website, because you actually have to kind of do the math yourself, and that gets hinky and it changes every year. So it might be
we
worth
had it posted, the table somewhere on one of our websites. Do we have that?
I saw it on the Turn the Key page. How to get there is another question.
So I can post that. I'll put
Okay,
it in the
we will make it easier because to Rebecca's point, not only is it difficult because you have to do some of the calculations, but just to get to the right table on the HUD website is not intuitive either. So let's figure out how we can make sure that that's easily available and viewable to folks. All right, with that, I don't see any other hands up, so I'll call the question. Can I get a motion on item 5A3, which is the disposition of several properties in the West Poplar area to FE West Poplar for the development of 54 single-family affordable homeownership units? Can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the disposition.
I second.
A motion has been made and properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And that brings us to item 5A4, which is again, properties disposed to FE Oxford LLC.
Thanks. So item 5A4 is an RFP response to the Ludlow West Oxford RFP. Today, we're asking the board to authorize the disposition of properties in Ludlow in the city's Ludlow neighborhood to FE Oxford LLC for the development of affordable homeownership in the 5th district. The proposal includes 21 single-family affordable homeownership units that will be sold to households with incomes at or below 100% of AMI. Maximum sales price here is capped at $280,000 for 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom units. Applications were solicited via request for proposals on the properties, and the applicant was the most qualified bidder for these properties. The parcel itself is 1600 to 40 North 9th Street in the 5th district. The developer will be purchasing the property at nominal. Evidence of the project financing has been provided, and the applicant is in good standing in compliance with the City of Philadelphia. It will be subject to an economic opportunity plan and also subject to irrevocable power of attorney and right of reverter reentry. The sale of the units will include a declaration of restrictive covenants, and the units will be subject to use restrictions and income verification.
All right, thank you again, Jesse. Do we have any questions from the board on this item? Seeing none, Andrea, did we receive any comments from the public on this item prior to the board meeting?
We did not.
All right. Do we have any members of the public currently present who would like to comment on this item? All right, seeing no hands up, can I get a motion from the board?
I'm okay. Second.
All right, motion has been made and properly seconded to approve the disposition of these properties to FE Oxford LLC for the development of 21 single-family affordable homeownership units. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries, and that brings us to the final item on our agenda, which is item 5A5, disposition of properties to Savetta 2 to develop 95 single-family affordable units.
Madam Chair, I'd like to recuse myself.
Please note that for the record that board member Michael Kuntz is recusing himself for this item. Go ahead, Jesse.
Sure. Item 5 under the dispositions is an RFP response to the Brewery Town Marston RFP. Today, we're asking the board to authorize the disposition of properties in Brewery Town to Savetta 2 LLC for the development of affordable homeownership project in the 5th district. This proposal includes 95 single-family affordable homeownership units, all of which are 3 stories, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, that will be sold to households with incomes at or below 100% of AMI. The maximum sales price is to be capped at $280,000 for these units. Applicants were solicited via RFP process, and the applicant was the most qualified bidder for the properties. The property list is extensive, and I'll go through it as best as I can. Starts off with 1402, 1403, 05, 1407, 1409, 1408, 1411, 1412, 1413, 1414, 1417, 1418, 1421, 1422, 1423, 1424, 1425, 1426, 1427, 1429, 1431, 1432, 1433, 1435, 1436, 1438, 1441, 1443, 1444, 1445, excuse me, 1445, not 1444, 1446, 1447, 1449, 1457, 1461, 1513, 1514, 1532, 1536, 1547, 1559, 1561, 1611, 1613, 1629, 1631, 1633, 1635, and 1641, all on Marston Street. On Cecil B. Moore Avenue, 2712, 2714, 2810, 2836, and 2838. On North 27th Street, I have 1316, 1318, 1400, 1406, 1408, 1414, 1418, 1422, 1426 to 32, 1434, 1436, 1438, 1444, 1448, 1450, and 1634, again on North 27th Street. 1544 and 1546 North 26th Street. 1602, 1608, 1614, 1632, 1637, and 1639 to 41 North Bailey Street. 1420, 1444, 1450, and 1453 North Edding Street. And finally, 2704, 2705, 2710, and 2720 Jefferson Street, all in the 5th District. Developer is going to be purchasing these properties at $9,500. Evidence of project financing has been provided. The applicant has been compliant, or has been verified for compliance and in good standing with the city of Philadelphia. Project's going to be subject to an economic opportunity plan. It's going to be subject to an irrevocable power of attorney and right of reverter reentry. And sale of all the units will be subject to a declaration of restrictive covenants, and the units will be subject to the use restrictions and income verification as well. I'm done.
Good work. Thank you, Jesse. Any questions on this item or comments on this item from the board?
So I have a question. Is the developer, he or she expressed a desire to participate in Turn the Key program for these properties?
Yes, all the developers are aware that this program is available because the properties, all these developments are built on city-owned land.
Publicly held land.
Publicly held land. My apologies.
Yeah, I think that it's like with my previous comments, it will be great to have a set aside for, providing deeper affordability for first-time home buyers in these neighborhoods. I think so that perhaps we can hit some of the lower targets, so the lower tiers in the AMIs, maybe 80% or 60% of AMI, however is permissible based on the specifics of this project.
Any other questions or comments on this item from the board?
What's their timeline to complete the project? There are a lot of units, so I'm saying they're all over the place, so.
Jesse, I believe the development timeline is put in.
Sorry, I was muted. They're proposing to complete it within the 18-month period.
All 90, it's 95 units, right?
Correct.
18 months, that's fast. On all these individual blocks. So what happens if they don't meet that?
Got their work cut out for them trying to
They
get.
sure do. What happens if they don't meet that 18-month deadline?
They have the ability to request, as part of our purchase development agreement, to request an extension. That's done administratively. We would review where they are with their permitting and construction phasing, and we would address that with the developers.
Do we know how many other developments they have underway? Or
I believe they have 3. They're finishing one up, and I believe they've been awarded 2. We have not gone to settlement yet.
That's correct.
And what's the total number of properties that they've gotten? Do we know? Because this is a repeat developer I know.
Total awarded. I'd have to pull that up. I don't have that right in front of me. I can share it with the board.
Okay, while you look for that, Andrea, do we receive any comments from the public prior to the board meeting?
We did specific to this particular item. We received an email from Adam Berryman regarding the properties on Marston Street. He said that he applauds the city's Turn the Key program and the efforts to build affordable housing, but he feels that the proposed development will adversely affect him and his partner and their home. He's asking if the city has any financial programs to assist homeowners who will be impacted by the development, or whether the city would like to acquire his home at a fair price.
Thank you.
And then there was one more from Julie, which was just received this morning. So I was unable to forward it to the board in time, but it was from Julie Stackhouse and Pascal Mascaro regarding 1514 North Marston Street. They apparently have acquired 1516 North Marston Street recently, want to acquire 1514 North Marston Street as a side lot, and want to have priority in purchasing the lot. And just to say that there were several emails from folks regarding the Brewery Town developments in general, asking questions about the details of the affordable development, whether people who had been maintaining properties at side or rear yards could acquire them. But these were general questions rather than specific to any particular property. So they will be brought up at the next, when the item 6 is brought back to the board.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go to public comment now, and hopefully we'll get those answers that board member Mike Johns asked. The first I have is Tiffany Vaughn.
Hi, good morning. My name is Tiffany Vaughn, and I live on the North 1400 block of North 28th Street. Thank you for taking my call, and I'd like to say it's nice to put a face to the name with Jesse. You've been such a great steward for the community and been exceedingly patient in all of our questions. So thank you, and I'm excited to ask a couple questions. And I guess first would be on the approach, because I have a few. Should I just like pepper them all out, or ask one and then get an answer, and then ask another and get an answer?
How many do you have?
like maybe 3.
Okay, so why don't you ask them, and I would say if they're relatively simple to answer, Jesse, why don't you, or whoever on staff, why don't you ask them as they come? So go ahead, Ms. Vaughn.
Thank you, Anne. My first question is around the developer itself. I think it's Civetta 2. Is that how you say it? Is this associated with just Civetta, who I know has done some of the affordable housing in Point Breeze? Or is this a different entity since there's a 2 next to it?
It is the same entity, just a sole purpose entity probably created, but it's the same people you're thinking about.
Okay, thank you. My second question is around the houses themselves. Is this, and I'm sorry if this is a dumb question, I'm just, I'm learning all of this for the first time, but would this be for workforce housing? So people who live and work in the city?
Correct. Yeah, that's who the target kind of audience is here. Home buyer.
Thank you. And is it 10 or 15 years home ownership?
This one, as specified by the RFP, it's 15 years.
15. And my last question, I promise. Just to confirm, these would be 3-story units with no curb cuts as we think about parking for the community around us?
There are no curb cuts associated with the design here.
Okay, so no parking garages for these units?
Correct.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I really appreciate the time, and I want to acknowledge all of you for potentially filling up these lots, which have been empty and not necessarily cared for. So I think that this would be a great addition to the community, and I'm hopeful that our neighbors will also see the value of this.
Thank you, Tiffany.
And next we have Jacques Singer.
Hi, good morning again. I just have like a couple quick questions. One is, did I understand correctly that these lots were purchased for like $9,500 each?
That's correct. It was a nominal bid in response to the RFP, and the bid price is $9,500
Wow, each property. That's it.
for all the properties.
All 95 properties were purchased for $9,500.
That is the purchase price being presented for approval here. Yes, sir.
Okay.
$9,500.
Okay, and then I guess the second question is like, are all the properties like RSA 5? Are they all supposed to be like single family homes, even though they're in different like zoning areas?
Believe actually, sorry.
And I was asking like specifically.
RM1s.
Okay, because I was asking like item number 6 that I realized that it was removed from this meeting today, but like the property next to my home, it's supposed to be like CMX2. So when you bring it into like this type of bidding processes, does that convert it into like, does that maintain the CMX2 zoning, or does it change?
Nothing, no action by this board does anything to change zoning, provide a variance, anything like that. This is purely disposition of the property. And if the property disposition motion is successful to the developer, they have to go through all of the zoning permitting, building permitting, all of that process still to come. This board has nothing to do with any of that.
But considering these sales are for affordable housing, does that mean that basically the CMX2 lot is going to be converted into a different zoning, so it's not going to be commercial in the bottom, or it will be commercial? I mean, because I'm concerned I'm the only adjacent property here, so.
The proposal is for single family homes, so they'll
okay.
have to address the zoning.
Oh, okay.
The down zoning.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have a hand up by Matthew Sullivan.
Hi there. Hopefully you can hear me. Thank you so much for letting me speak. I just wanted to comment kind of generally. I live nearby at 28th and Jefferson, and I know there's some lots on the 2700 block of Jefferson Street that are included here. And I just was kind of prompted to say this by board member Michael Johns' comment earlier, that there's been a lot of kind of ongoing development in this general area that I've seen, and the fact that like there are 95 proposed units here, I can just tell you based on what I've observed in this area, like there's absolutely no way that 95 would be completed in the span of their proposed 18 months. Just based on the pace that you see of multiple different types of developers here of different scales, and also the ability of city utility contractors to keep up with a lot of infrastructure changes and improvements that are necessary to bring all those new construction places online. And I support the development of this area and increasing access to affordable housing. So my comment isn't negated against that. It's just I would maybe encourage you to think about if the goal is actually to really practically bring as many affordable housing units online in this area, is it the best strategy to just give 95 to one developer that is relatively unlikely to be able to complete it in any time soon, versus maybe splitting it between two developers, or soliciting additional RFPs from another developer who would maybe be willing to take some of those? And I think especially if you're only selling them at $100 per unit, it would be feasible for another developer to have access, and that would actually accomplish the goal faster. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. We appreciate those comments. And next we have, I am never going to get this name right, so I apologize in advance. It looks like Michi Candawenko.
Hi, my name is Michi. I'm a city employee from Department of Revenue. And my question is, how do I qualify for this unit? And how do I apply for the Turn the Key program? Thank you.
Okay, so we've put the Turn the Key program link in the chat. You can look at that, and also the income guidelines are also there. There's another link. So you would go to the link where it says Turn the Key at the web. When you get to that web page, there is a form that you would fill out. You would express interest in being a part of that. We will take your information, we will review it, and then we will follow up with you to get more detailed information. And as part of what you'll find is part of the questions, because we have been accelerating the RFP process and options. If you go to the web page, you'll see that there are multiple neighborhoods. You will be asked what your preference is, what part of the city, and certain other information. And as projects come online, you'll be noticed that they're available.
All right, and Ms. Vaughn, we typically don't let folks speak twice. So if you have one more question, I'll let you have one more question.
Thank you. And I appreciate you. I forgot to ask, with the sale price of these homes on Marston, would that be not exceeding 280 as well?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And we have one last hand up. Oh, no, coming up. Desiree Outlaw.
Hello?
Yep, go ahead. We can hear you.
How you doing? As you see, my name is Desiree Outlaw. I live in the community on Newkirk Street. And I'm just curious that, I heard you saying that all these properties sold for like $9,500. How do you go about finding about these properties when they're being sold or bidded on? Where are y'all putting this information at? And why isn't the community, the people that live in the community, aware of these sales and what's going on? Because the average people that been in here, like I've been in this community for almost 40 years. And I have been taking care of lots and things on my block. And, we haven't gotten notice or any information letting us know that these properties are up for sale or given the opportunity to buy it before these contractors who don't live in these communities come in here and just invest and make all this money, where people that have been living here forever, when nobody was interested. We have never been given opportunities to obtain these properties for $100. We have everybody around here in the community, a lot of people have $100 to purchase a lot. Why weren't we given these same opportunities first as the people that lived in here when nobody was interested?
Can staff please respond about how people can access the properties?
So I put into the chat a stay informed link. Once you sign up for that, you will be noticed on anything you can select, whether it's, you want to know about homeowner programs, about our RFPs and RFQs and when things are posted. We do notice the RCOs when we put these out via email. They're on a mailing list. So that's how we try to get the word out. So I put that in the chat and you can sign up for that. To the question about, which is an earlier question that was asked, was that a priority for affordable housing had been set in this area. So applications for side yards and garden space was not accepted. If you go to our website, it would inform you of that. And we have spoken, we've gotten solicitations from people regarding that, and the staff have reviewed those and noticed those people about those applicants about what the intended use was.
And next we have somebody who's a phone caller. So can we unmute them? And whoever is on the phone, before you give your comment, can you just state your
Hi.
name for the record? Can you state your name for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Sean. So I have like kind of two questions. The first one was kind of piggybacking off of something that Tiffany had asked about curb cuts. And part of the answer was that it was mentioned that there is a design for these homes. And I did sort of ask this in the chat, but I wanted to know if it's included in the design currently, if the designs include trees at these homes. If there's 95 units being proposed, 95 homes, that's potentially 95 trees being added to the neighborhood. And I know that not every property would probably be eligible for it, but yeah, I just wanted to know if the design does include that, at least in the renderings. And yeah, so that's my first question, if anyone wants to respond. I know that there's no incentive or requirements that do so, but I wanted to know if it was part of the design.
So Steph, can you respond? I believe the question was, does the project include any parking? It was very difficult to hear the phone call.
Wait, hold on one second.
Okay.
Okay, can you all hear me better now?
A little bit, yes. But was your question about does the project include any parking? Is that your question?
No. My question was, I had heard that Tiffany had asked about curb cuts for parking, which made me think about, is there, in the renderings of these designs, are there trees rendered into these designs at these properties? If there's 95 properties, that's potentially 95 trees. I know that not every property is always eligible for a tree, but I wanted to know if that's considered in the design at all. I'm somebody who lives in the neighborhood now 6 years. I've been planting trees in the neighborhood, so it's important to me. And I don't think it gets stressed enough how important it actually is as public infrastructure. So yeah, I wanted to know if that's included in the design at all.
So the design itself doesn't necessarily reflect any tree installations. However, I would think that the adjacencies in some of these properties might trigger a certain street lineage or linear footage that would maybe require the street tree requirement. I'm not 100% sure. And I think the actual developer's hands are raised, and they might be able to speak to it on a initial kind of preliminary level.
Right, I think, okay. So let's hear from the developers. I don't know if we've got, I guess we have Mike Tomasetti.
Hi, you've actually got Brennan Tomasetti, but Mike's here as well.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Good morning, everyone. Brennan Tomasetti, co-founder, Chivetta Property Group. Thanks for having us today. To address the concern about the 18-month target for construction, we have not done a project this size before. However, we have executed multiple RFPs in the past, 20 plus homes each, and all of those were the most recent of those were delivered in 6 months or less. We are confident that we've got the team in place to execute this. It will be executed in phases, 4 phases. So we will initiate construction on a group of homes, execute the foundations on those, start moving forward, and then the foundation team will move on to phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. So we are comfortable and confident that we can execute this in 18-month timeframe.
Great, thank you. And next I have Noel Vaught.
Hi, so I live on this block of the 1400 block of North Marston Street. A lot of this block is currently vacant, and I saw that the proposal is over 30 units to be built just on this block within 18 months. I'm a bit concerned I feel like I'm not sure how it would be possible for residents to continue accessing this street, being able to like drive or park or, you know, even just kind of walk down. It just sounds like it'll be full of construction for 18 months, hopefully getting finished in 18 months. It's also full of a lot of greenery, and it's just, it would be really too bad to lose all of that green space. I think the city as a whole shouldn't be removing all of its green space. I think it's really beneficial to the community to have that and to also be able to access the streets that they live on. So I guess, will the whole street be shut down? I'm just curious of how this is actually going to work out.
Yeah, I
So-
think let's let Brennan come back on, the developer, to talk about how they plan to stage.
Thanks, Ann. Yeah, so we're conscious and aware that, you know, we try to minimize interruption to, you know, the street as much as possible. So I'll just say that we consider that in the execution, and we make every effort to minimize the disruption and closing of streets as much as possible. So that's absolutely considered in our planning process.
Right, and
It wouldn't be shut down for 18 straight months. We just, you know, as necessary, as needed.
And I'm just going to put in my 2 cents, where I would strongly encourage you to meet with any neighbors on the blocks where you're building to talk about construction schedule and access and all of those things.
Absolutely. Yeah, we look forward to engaging with the community.
Thank you. Me and myself, I'm not seeing any other hands up. So was that the same caller? I can't tell with these callers. I'm going to acknowledge this caller, but if you've already spoken, please make your comments brief. Caller with the hand raised, you are able to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I had asked about the trees. And the developer didn't respond to that, but I wanted to know, since she just said that she's looking to be engaged with the community, considering that I'm part of a community organization that does plant trees in the neighborhood, I wanted to know if maybe we could connect and just kind of play some kind of hopefully peripheral like influence in any kind of way. I mean, it would be a shame for there to be more development of properties that are just going to be, you know, not considering this at all in their renderings. As it is, it's just renderings, so renderings can certainly change to accommodate things like that.
Brennan, are you able to connect with this gentleman and talk about how you plan to landscape the project?
Yeah, we'd be happy to have some discussion there. I can share my contact info.
Excellent. Okay, great. Thank you
Thank you.
both. And I'm going to take Marissa Casera, and then I'm going to get to Mike Johns, our board member. Go ahead, Marissa.
Hi, yes, thank you so much. So I actually live on the block of 1400 and Dover, and the property specifically that me and some of my neighbors have questions about is in section 6. So I just want to confirm that we're still not getting to that today. Is that correct?
That item's been tabled.
Okay, and I do still have some general questions that I think might be related to the overall process and all of the properties that I would still just like to understand. So it seems like based on the way that this has been going today, a couple individuals in the public were speaking on specific lots, whether it be parking or green space or cleanup, whatever it is. And it kind of seems like the process is that the board either approves or disapproves a full motion. Is there scenarios where certain lots can get removed from a motion and the board votes on it, or is the board only voting on approving full, I guess, item numbers under the agenda?
The board has the discretion to either to make any kind of motion they so choose. So who is ever
Okay.
making the motion can make a motion that would adjust or approve or disapprove. That is not predictated.
Okay, so with that then, help me understand, like, as realistically as possible in either your experience or your personal preferences, just because I'm new to this and I know you guys have way more experience with this. In a really realistic scenario, what would we as community members have to do or make a case to you for in order to get a specific lot removed from the list of properties that are getting disposed? Because it sounds like green space is not really a priority or an item of discussion or a city initiative anymore. So realistically, what would be a case that we could make where one property would potentially be removed?
So we have had cases where prior to posting or where we have posted the agenda that the public has reached out to us and we will review those cases. And then depending on the outcome and what we assess, we will, speak to, council office and also the developer and, remove items from the agenda prior to the board seeing that. So that's when we would address those issues. And we have done that in the past.
Okay, so that's actually great since we didn't even get to the section that I think my neighbors and I wanted to talk about. So would you just advise us to, I guess, continue making a case prior to whenever number 6 gets moved?
So item number 6 will be coming back to the board when we've addressed the concerns that have been raised by the public. We have done our own due diligence on what's been stated versus what we've seen, and we are in process of vetting those issues, and that's why we decided to table the item.
Okay, perfect. And then I will also probably, and I'm sure my neighbors too will have more specific questions about that lot and how it will work and the purchasing and preventing renting and the timeline of it. And I suppose for now, it probably just makes sense to hold off on all of that. So thank you. I just wanted to understand the general process and what we can do on our end to make a better case and make it easier for you guys.
Thank you.
If it's
Thank you.
possible, can I
Appreciate
make a,
that.
can I make a quick
Go
comment?
ahead. Yeah.
I think that Ms. Casera, I hope you need to understand that like putting advocating for green space also means being very organized, and we have very specific rules that we have to follow around like how we can dispose of things, including whether or not a community garden is organized as a nonprofit, which I think is actually kind of like smart in that it requires that a group is going to maintain this, right? Like that there is beyond just like one person or something. So I think that if you, as you're asking, like, what can me and my neighbors do? I think you should think harder about getting seriously organized around a particular property or thinking through what that might look like. Because, and there's also really big practical issues. Like that means community gardens have to have insurance. Like they need to, it's like very, it's not light. It's not a light kind of like we're all just going to pitch in and pick up trash every once in a while. Like there actually needs to be a board. There needs to be bylaws. You need to have insurance. And so I just want to put that out there that's part of the calculus. And the other point, Angel, that I hope you can make is that like, I've noticed that there's a lot of calls around the amount that the developer's paying for these properties for $9,500 for 95 properties, which sounds like kind of nutty. But the reality is that's the deal we're making. We're selling these properties very inexpensively so that they have the runway to build affordable units. So it's like no one can just like buy $100 property and then just have it. Like the deal is that the city is selling this cheap to incentivize affordable housing development, right? Like And do I have that kind of characterization correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's exactly right. So if we sold these lots at fair market value, some of which are north than $100,000, there would be absolutely no way that then the purchase price could be in the 200s, right? If you sell for the lot for $100,000, the value, you're then selling a unit probably at 450 or something like that, right? Which we know is, forget it. It's not in the range that a huge percentage of our population could afford. So that's exactly right.
So I just noticed like more than one person kind of talked about that price. And I just want to make sure the public understands like that there is kind of a deal happening here. There's a covenant and that there's a reason that we're making that deal. And that's to incentivize affordable housing.
Correct. Michael Johns has had his hand up for quite some time, so I'm going to recognize him and then I'll recognize the member of the public with their hand up. Michael, you're muted.
Thanks. I've got a number of questions that maybe the developer can answer or staff can answer. I know you were looking for an answer for the previous question I had. So here are my questions. I'll just shoot them off. How many parcels has the developer received? How many houses have been completed and sold? What were the sales prices of those houses that were completed and sold? How many buyers took advantage of the Turn the Key program, right? In terms of MBE and WBE, of all the projects that they worked on, because they said there are a number of them, what were the dollar values of those contracts for those projects for MBE and WBE? And in their projects, did they utilize any local hires for anything during the work?
So thanks for the questions, Michael. I think with the level of depth that you're asking for, I would ask that you allow us a chance to put it together to send to you. I think what I will say is that I know for a fact in terms of MBE participation, they've been doing well on those issues. They have received 2 previous RFPs in the 2nd district. That would be the Earp Street and the Cross Street. And both of those are completed. In terms of affordability, those RFPs were put out where we had a mix of affordability. The first one, Earp Street, those properties, the affordable level was at 195,000. And then I believe the higher level one was sold at 230. And then we have the Cross Street, you had higher level was 250, and then you had 195 again. And those were all completed in the 2nd district. Recently, which would tie back to Turn the Key, this developer has been awarded Reverend Allen, which was 41 units, and Wharton Street, which is 25 units. Those haven't gone to closing. And I would just make a point to the board to understand that Turn the Key is a new program and was just approved last November. Therefore, any awards that we're seeing that are coming up, those, how we utilize Turn the Key won't happen until they're midway in terms of development. So our plan is to really start assisting all of the developers, not just, and I would say this as a caveat. The Frankels, Savetta, BMK, and some others have been receiving workforce housing awards for quite some time since we initially did this, either through the PRA or when the land bank started issuing RFPs. So I think that one thing I do want to note and put it on the record is that I think that the Savettas have kept coming in to these RFPs where others have not applied and have really tried to learn our process, which is not easy. And this is a big, issue that I've received from a lot of developers that feel that we're very compliance heavy, very regulatory, and most small developers are not geared to handle business that way. So it is a learning curve, and it's taken us some time to where we have a diversified group of developers Also why we started the minority development program. And as you can see, the board has already approved the partnership between BMK and I believe it was Fine Line, which is also an MVP participant. And that would be their second award for that partnership. So, you know, the staff and myself have taken these issues seriously. We're trying to get a diversified group of developers and build that pool of people that we can ask to step in and develop affordable housing. But we will get that information and we will provide it to you.
I have two more folks up with public comment. I'm going to let those two, and then I'm going to cut off public comment. We've had a lot of comment on this and a lot of discussion, but I am nervous about losing a quorum. And it looks like I only have one hand up. So I'm going to go to Caitlin Pereira. And then I'll add Allison, and then I'm cutting off public comment because again, I'm worried about losing a quorum. So go ahead, Caitlin.
Yeah, you got the last name right, actually. Good job. Two questions. My first one is, who do we go to if any damage occurs to our property while things are being built next to us? Let's say we have a foundation issue, or you know, an interior wall cracks because of, you know, what they've been doing to the house, or they damage our vehicle, or they leave a ton of trash around. Who do we go to appeal to?
So we can act as a liaison. I know that as Brennan and Michael Tomasetti have mentioned, they will be working with the community. In the past, they have given their contact information so that if there are any issues with that, I also, you know, my staff, myself, Andrea, and Jesse, we also deal with those calls right on a regular basis. And we're very quick at responding to that because we understand that this should be a value add and should not, impede somebody from or affect somebody's house or property.
And my second question is, obvious, like the block, you know, some blocks, there's a lot of houses being built like on singular blocks. Obviously, the street's going to be shut down. It has to, you know, to get that stuff in and out. Can we get any sort of guarantees on how long the streets are closed? Like, I personally have some disabilities, and it makes like grocery shopping and stuff like impossible when I can't have access to my home, you know, a block or so away. So how do we minimize how much we're cut off?
Yeah, so I think the developers already responded to that, and you have sounds like you have some particular circumstances. So again, the developers put their contact information. We've already said the developer needs to go out and talk to the existing residents on these blocks to work that out, to make sure that no resident that exists right now is harmed or, you know, minimal inconvenience during construction.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Sure, thank you. All right, and Allison, you are my last speaker, so go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much.
Unfortunately, Allison, seems like you have a poor connection.
I have a general question. The restrictive covenant is not in perpetuity. It's usually for 10. Although I did ask my question in the question and answer, but I didn't get an answer.
Okay, so
my question
Allison,
is 10 or 15 years. Why can it not be in perpetuity?
Yeah, you're coming in and out a little bit. So I think the question is, why is the restrictive covenant for 10 or 15 years and not in perpetuity? And,
yes, thank you.
And the answer to that is really, it's a policy decision, right? Is that we want to maintain a level of affordability after a certain point, but we also don't want to get the point for a long-term homeowner that we're penalizing them, that they are not able to have wealth creation like a lot of the general population is. When you purchase a home and you put equity in and you live there and you continue to maintain it and improve it, after some period of time, there should be you should be allowed to build equity in that home and have wealth creation. And that's why the deed restrictions are not in perpetuity.
But what if it's a developer and a multifamily as opposed to a residential single?
Well, that is a different deed that oftentimes is 35, 40, or 50 years. And again, not in perpetuity, because oftentimes the way those projects are financed with, and that's complicated, right? Those are very complicated capital stacks with tax credit investors and this, and there's certain things that they will invest in and certain things they will not. And that's really to make sure that those affordable housing developments are affordable for as long as possible, but also have the ability to attract the investors that they need.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, with that, I'm going to close public comment. And if there are no other questions or comments from the board, I'm going to call the question and ask for a motion on item 5A5.
I move that we approve the disposition.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to approve the disposition of 95 properties for 95 units of homeownership housing to Sabetta 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. That concludes the regular agenda of the Land Bank Board meeting for August. Do we have any members of the public who wish to approach the board about any kind of general items for discussion? And let me just say, we've had a lot of general discussion during this board meeting. All right, Matthew. Go ahead, Matthew Sullivan.
Hi there. Hopefully you can hear me again. This is a general comment. I know, like you said, you just had quite a lot of discussion about that one item. I guess I just wanted to say, I think a lot of people do really support the mission of what's going on in each of these developments, but as I think you can perceive, maybe there's a little bit of like a antagonistic feel between residents and developers and the land bank and all that, just because I think everyone feels like there's hidden communications happening and maybe not as much transparency as there could be when it comes to the planning process that goes into all this. And then people feel like they find out at the last second once like a piece of paper has been tied to a fence somewhere and then there's no more opportunity for input. So I guess, this is something obviously it's not going to change overnight, but I would just encourage you to think maybe about ways, if the goal is to kind of increase community support and input behind a lot of these development projects, I think that would happen very naturally if people felt just not even involved necessarily, but just aware of what's going on in a more transparent way earlier on. And I get that there's, a stay informed link that you can sign up for an email and individually keep track of that. I don't think anyone outside of this particular Zoom meeting is aware of that stay informed link. So just, when RFPs are issued and you're only getting submissions from developers or something like that, and the goal is to get submission from developers, I get it. It just would maybe think creatively about if there was some way to just inform the public earlier on, or have an opportunity for them to increase transparency between existing residents and the developers, so that much earlier on you could get concerns addressed individually by the developer about what's going to happen, with the logistic plan for this street, and what's the shutdown going to look like, and how can I ensure access to this property isn't changed. I think there's a lot of ways that the land bank could contribute to that kind of as the liaison of this whole process that would make people feel a little bit more respected as residents, and then just make the process for developers easier, because it wouldn't be an antagonistic relationship from the beginning. So I just encourage you to think about that. And if there's anything that could be done, I do think, people would appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate those comments and we take those seriously. I think, we are thinking through that and trying to figure out how we get more notice and more conversation to happen prior to people having to show up at a board meeting when it feels like too much has already occurred, right? And that even though, we sort of perceive this as the beginning, I know that from the community standpoint, it doesn't feel like the beginning. It feels like, much further along in the process. So we're definitely looking at that and take those comments very much to heart. And hopefully we'll be able to maybe shift some of our policies around that in the very near future. All right, with that, I'm gonna get a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All right, motion has been made and probably seconded to adjourn the August meeting of the Land Bank Board meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Okay, great. This has been again, a very lively discussion. It's always involved when we're trying to move this many properties through and get this many units developed. Lots of issues come up. We do appreciate the conversation and hope everybody has a safe and healthy rest of their summer. Hopefully they'll get a little cooler and we'll see folks back here in September. Thank you.
And you'll get that information, those questions answered. You get it around.
Yes,
All right. Thank you.
definitely.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
all.
Bye.
Stay cool.